And whenever you're ready.
My name is Sibi, and I'm going to be talking about industrialization's impact on culture. Today I'm going to be showing you how industrialization affects the environment, cultural heritage, cultural diversity, and some solutions that would help prevent the negative effects of it. The word culture may be open to interpretation, but I find the quote by Walter Lippmann perfectly summarizes it. He says that culture is a name for what people are interested in, their thoughts, their mottos, the books they read, and the speeches they hear. Culture is an all-encompassing term, and it doesn't really apply to only one facet of human civilization. So, the question we must ask ourselves is, how does industrialization affect the environment? The rise of machinery have had two major impacts on the environment. First, the forests. Forests are home to many indigenous peoples. Their entire culture and lifestyles are centered around the resources that those forests provide. A leading issue in this environmental sphere is deforestation. As you can see in this graph, although deforestations have had a net decrease, they are slowly on the increase and may start to rise again. Indigenous people like the Kasi and Yanomamo tribes depend on their respective forests to give them shelter, nutrition, and are responsible for giving them their own lives. Waterways are also among the facets of environments that are affected by industrialization. Heavy pollution is a result of offshore machinery and factories that dump sewage and industrial waste into rivers. Each year, 1.2 trillion tons of sewage and industrial waste is dumped into only U.S. waters. That's only U.S. waters. In Calcutta, there are fish pond villages that live downstream. As sewage and waste is dumped into their waters, they and the bacteria in the water team up to purge the water of its impurities, and this process can take up to 30 days. This is the only way to purify the water before it enters the Bay of Bengal. And as you can see, industrialization is clearly wreaking havoc on these cultures that depend on their environment to thrive. Next, we must ask ourselves, how does industrialization affect cultural heritage? Industrialization creates this effect called cultural mismatch in our society. Mismatch can be defined as the developing of one aspect of something while the other aspect lags behind. Industrialization creates this effect by affecting our childhoods. In many native tribes and communities, children of all ages and genders are seen playing together and interacting with each other. Their entire lifestyle is different and they value togetherness. However, in the more industrialized West, children here play only with their own age group, and playing with the other gender seems irrelevant. By not allowing children to interact with people, they are not open to more stimuli, and thus have their futures less opportune. By getting exposed to less opportunities, it may seem daunting when children are exposed and thrust into a world without adult supervision and no knowledge on how to work the scene in it. There is clearly a mismatch between the knowledge of children and the motions of society around them. Clearly, industrialization is affecting the cultural present and future. Finally, we get to diversity and how industrialization is preventing this. Industrialization creates a standardized way of living. It creates this through different norms and widespread practices that it continues to proliferate more and more. Over time, this creates a homogenized culture that lacks any cultural diversity. A common example of this is fast food corporations. In different regions, there are traditional cuisines. However, the widespread mass production of fast food creates a standardized, easier, and more efficient way of living that more people find appealing sometimes. Over time, this creates a lack of diversity. In addition to the loss of cultural heritage, industrialization is also ruining the diversity. Now we can look at a solution to help prevent the decay of culture from happening. My solution was to impose stricter laws regulating corporations and teachings. The implications of this would be that it is a federal policy, so it is government mandated. And because it is a federal policy, legal action can be taken against people who violate the codes that rules will be enforced. Also, by teaching more, the future generation will not be underprepared for their secondary education and other opportunities that are posed to them in the future. However, the limitations of this is that poachers and other illegal groups will not be necessarily stopped immediately because it is a legal action and not a direct physical action. Also, the process to get this action ratified and enforced will be lengthy because it is government and legal action. That's my work.
All right, just give me one moment. All right, so we have two questions for you. How did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process? Did your research go in a different direction than you originally planned?
So my original research question was how these traditional cultures in like indigenous peoples are decaying and how the industrialization is slowly decreasing them. But I found that that was too narrow of a question to ask, and I feel like a broader question was like how industrialization affects culture as a overall instead of just indigenous people.
Okay. And then lastly, what might be the real-world implication or consequences of your findings? What are the implications to your community?
So the real world implications would be that it is a government, my solution would be a government mandated action. So everyone would be enforced to do it. By everyone, I mean like these big corporations. And in a community perspective, talking about the facet of environmental conservation in different communities that suffer from environmental degradation, that would be saved because of the lesser degrading of the environment around them.
All right, thank you very much. Okay.